Welcome back. I'm Gary Parr. You're listening to Fiber Talk, the twice-weekly podcast for the fine art needle and thread people. And this week, Joanna Somers, the Plum Stitchery. It's needlepoint week. Hi, Joanna.
Hi, Gary. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm all right. Boy, I haven't talked to a painted canvas needlepoint person in a long time. This is thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You guys are hard to get a hold of, quite frankly. So
is that right?
Yeah, I don't know what it is about painted canvas people, but glad to have you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we started, you said you were stitching, so now I got to know, what are you stitching?
I am stitching a piece from the Dana Gibson collection. She has a series of scarabs that we recently launched, so I'm stitching one of them.
Oh, okay. Yes, well, that is interesting because you have your own line of stuff you've designed, and then you have several artists. What is there? 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 artists.
10
10
artists now. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do this backwards. How do you latch onto these artists? What is the what? Yeah.
Each of them I met, a little bit in a different way. Some of them I was friends with, and the collaborations grew from there. And some of them were just blind messages that I sent. I see a lot of them on social media, on Instagram, and I reached out to them and said, hey, your work would be beautiful in needlepoint. I don't see designs like yours in the industry. I think people would love to stitch them. And, sometimes I just get no response. If they're not stitchers, they're not familiar with needlework, they might not understand the concept. But I'm surprised, I'm humbled by how many artists are willing to work with me, to trust me with their work, to adapt it to needlepoint canvas. Yeah. So they've all come about in different ways.
Yeah, I've wondered about that. So these are pure artists. You just see their work and you think, that would make a good needlepoint thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And because everybody has such different tastes. And that's why it's so great that there are so many artists. I see such a growth in the industry. So many new artists are coming in. And that's wonderful because we all like to stitch our own thing. We all have our own style. And it seems like more and more artists come in to answer that demand.
Yeah. So when you latch on to somebody like Dana, then is it a print? You say, send me a print, and then you paint from that, or what's that process?
It's all been through digital media. So I look on my computer screen for scale. I look on my phone because the colors render more accurately on my phone than they do my computer screen. And that's the main challenge without working from a print, trying to get the colors to be accurate. But, I've been able to, it's worked. So far, this approach has worked.
Hey, that's great. So then you take that, whatever you see on your screen, and then you paint that.
That's right. Yep.
And by paint it, is it something that you pencil out first and to give an outline, or? Right.
Yeah. My process, there are some software programs that allow you to design on the grid without putting any paint to canvas first, which is wonderful because then you're not amending as you go, and that can get messy with the canvas. My process has been to sketch first. I sketch on paper. I trace the general outline with a black pen. I put blank canvas over that, and then I paint from there. And I'll do the general shapes, then I'll do the background, and then I'll go in and add details as the last step. That, for me, has worked. When I first started painting canvas, I used a really hard pencil, a 6H pencil on the canvas so that the paint wouldn't rub it off, and that became really messy. So I had to stop that. And this is what works for me.
Yeah, that's one thing I hate is pencil on the canvas. I always feel like it's going to show up on the thread somewhere.
And it bleeds into the paint, and it's so hard to draw with a 6H pencil and to get a good outline. The only other instrument that I would put on canvas is a micron pen, And those are really wonderful. I do see a lot of designers using those to, draw their outlines and fill in.
Mm-hmm. And so you have this piece of paper underneath the canvas, and
right,
and you just paint over that then.
That's right. Yeah.
And that gives you how do you do it so that it comes out correct on the grid? Is that done on the paper?
No, so that's done. That's something I have to kind of tailor as I go
on the
to make
fly.
it stitch
Okay.
painted on the fly, right? And in everything I try, and some designs, I can name some designs in my collection that are not stitch painted. I have a stocking with water, and the water is not stitch painted. That would be perfect for an open stitch, but I try to make everything stitch painted. I was a needle pointer before I was a painter. So I really appreciate stitch painting and how much more pleasant it is for the stitcher to not have to guess.
Yeah, the guesswork goes away. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Who needs to be doing that? This is something for relaxation. It's meditative.
Yeah, I actually haven't done a painted canvas in a long time, but I learned on the old dimension kits. And Oh yeah. Yeah.
A lot of guesswork on those.
Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, and that gets frustrating, especially if you're not real good at it. It just, oh geez, I got to take this out again because that line still doesn't look right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have seen printed canvas. There are designers right now printing canvases, and they're actually printed very accurately. I haven't stitched one, but I've seen them up close, and they're done well. But I think with those dimension canvases, there are so many colors.
Yeah, they were quick and dirty.
Right.
Cheap wool and quick and dirty. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why you could pick one up for $20 or something. Yes.
That's right. Yeah, I've taught a couple of classes on how to paint needlepoint canvas, and that's always the ringing cry as the students are going through and painting these. They all say this is why they cost what they cost.
Yes,
because they're very time intensive.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that anyone who has sat down and even painted an ornament immediately would realize why those bigger ones are so expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, and everything in my line is hand painted, but I mean the quality is just there, and so you can enjoy it. You don't have to guess when you stitch it.
So a needle pointer before you started doing canvases, how did you get started? Were you a child when you learned from someone?
No, so I was really into hand quilting, and that was my thing. I loved working with my hands and always having something in hand. I can't just sit still. So I was a hand quilter, and my mother-in-law, she was introduced to needlework maybe 5 years ago, needlepoint, I should say. And she called me and said, Joanna, you would love this. You have to try it. So she took me to our local needlepoint shop. We were very lucky to have one in town, Wool and Willow. And I walked in and I saw a strictly Christmas stocking hanging on the wall. And I wanted my daughter, who was 3 at the time. Jane has to have this stocking. And the ladies in the shop said, have you ever needlepointed before? No, I've never tried it. And so they said, why don't you think about it before you pick up a stocking? So we went to lunch, and I said, no, I can do this. So we went back and I got it, and it was stitched in 6 weeks. And then I stitched one for my son. I was hooked. And so the shop owner, and I was around the shop so much, she finally hired me.
Oh, you're one of those, huh?
Yeah.
If you're going to be here all the time, you might as well get to work. Yeah.
Might as well. Yeah. Start doing something productive here. So I worked for her twice a week for several years, and she taught me so much about the industry and all the different fibers and how how high quality hand painted canvases are necessary. I owe a lot to her, and it's really fostered a love of shops. I love needlepoint shops. I love to hear when new shops are opening. I think they're a wonderful asset to our industry.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. You said it was Wool and Willow?
Wool and Willow, yep, in Cleveland.
Still there?
Still there.
All right.
Very strong.
Yeah. Oh, that's great, especially the ones that have been around forever. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say forever, because then that suggests you've been around forever. Never mind. Never mind.
That's okay. I'm 36.
No, I'm just digging a hole. Never mind. No, stop.
No, you're not. No, you're not. No, so that's when I started stitching. It was just about 5 years ago. My mother used to do crewel work and cross stitch, and she was one of those who never finished anything. She would stitch it and she would finish the piece, but she would never turn it into anything. She just loved doing it. And
I like your mom. I like your mom a lot.
Yeah, I do too. I understand her. I've got a bin of projects that are stitched that aren't finished, and I get it.
Yeah. So she did cross stitch and crewel, and then so it literally was then the shop and the needlepoint that started you with needlepoint instead of starting with cross stitch.
Correct. And how I got into painting, how that segued into painting, was my mother-in-law wanted a canvas, and I thought,
this mother-in-law is trouble. She's
given me a lot of inspiration. She's whether I wanted to do it or not, I was thrown into these situations that were very lucky for me to be thrown into. I'm not a fine arts major. I was an English major and a writing minor in college. I tried nursing. I did online marketing for a decade and hated it. And I was a realtor. And then I was a stay-at-home mom. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
But you're certainly testing the options. So
yeah, I am keeping them open. But she wanted a canvas. She was getting into bird watching at the time and gave me a book, a Peterson's book of birds, and asked me to paint her something. And that's where I have a canvas of Ohio birds in my collection. That was one of the first things I painted. And then my sister wanted a stocking for her daughter, and that's where the foxes came from. And so things just kind of grew. And then I had my third child, and I fell away from it. And then Anne asked me to paint something for the shop, and I remember sitting down to do it, and I was just grumbling because I thought, oh gosh, I can't do this, and I don't have time for this. But then I was hooked again, and then that's when I relaunched Plum Stitchery, and that was about 2 years ago, and I'm so grateful that she asked me to do that, because I wouldn't have tried it again.
So I assumed you had an art background, so you don't.
I don't. No, I've always liked drawing, but I probably don't do it correctly. If you see my sketches, if there is a fine artist
it's
out
art.
there,
who says what's right? You know.
I don't know.
Well, see, that's just it on Instagram. There, I saw you got a bunch of your sketches. I figured you were an artist.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Maybe by trade, not by education.
Okay. Hey, looks like you can get it done to me. I don't know.
It works. It's for what I need to do. It works.
Yeah. So the painting, then, you taught yourself that too, then?
I did get instruction from Anne. She said, water down acrylic and the tiniest brush you can find. Ah. And I was on my way.
Those two tips. See, that always comes up when painted canvases come up, is what paint, because people want to know specific brand. And all I ever see is, acrylic paint, and I water it down. And
yeah.
And so the thin brush, just so you can keep the lines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, speaking to paint, watered down paint, so you can get very pricey with paint. My favorite paint is golden high flow acrylic, because it's the perfect consistency right out of the bottle.
Oh.
But, I've also used 99-cent craft paint from the craft store, and it works fine. You just water it down. But it's the golden, I think those can get very expensive.
Uh-huh.
But you don't need much.
Well, but and also if you don't have to water it down and monkey with it, then that simplifies things.
It does. Absolutely.
Do you these are just me. Do you worry about the permanence of that paint, especially with so many people using open stitches now? Do you worry about the permanence? Is the acrylic, I assume because of the acrylic, it's not as likely to crack and flake off? Yeah,
it's I've not run into any problems with it. wearing off or fading, or I've never had it come off while I'm stitching, especially if it's watered down. If it is applied straight from the bottle, it can get kind of chalky.
Okay.
And I think you can tell as you're stitching, it's a little bit thicker and it fills the holes a little bit. It's not as nice versus when it's watered down.
Okay. And by watered down, what, 50-50 or?
Not even that much. Just, just a little bit till it's the consistency of heavy cream.
Oh, okay. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then now I just got to know these little technical things.
Sure.
I always wonder when you're painting those things, how do you keep the holes from filling up? And it must be a mess underneath that canvas.
Yeah, it can get kind of polka dotted underneath. So watering it down, again, is the antidote to having those clogged holes. Sometimes you just can't help it. I know there's one designer who very cleverly uses a straw to blow air through the holes before the paint dries.
Oh.
You can also use the tip of your brush, but sometimes that can get messy. If you're doing a very small portion, you don't want the brush to accidentally get on the wrong piece of canvas. Or, the other thing I've done is just take a needle after it's dried.
Okay.
Puncture it.
Yeah. Yeah, all I can think is nothing but drips underneath. So you must, some system for wiping the underneath the canvas too?
It never gets that bad.
No,
you just do a little bit. I mean, and that's the thin brush helps with that. If I'm doing background, if I glob too much paint on, you can turn a painted canvas over and see if it's primarily white canvas, then it's been painted well. But I've definitely seen globs of paint come through. They're not that messy though. It's not that messy of a process. Just keeping the paint thin and the brush small.
Tells you what kind of painter I am.
Yeah. One of my first canvases that I painted, I was done. It was great. It was 10 o'clock at night. I was going to go to bed and I saw one little spot I wanted to fix and I put too much water on my brush and put it on the canvas and it turned to linen. The canvases all have sizing on them. That's what makes them stiff, which is great for stitching.
Right.
And too much water, that's like the only thing you can do to hurt these canvases is to get too much water on them. And I threw it in the trash.
Oh, no.
Went to bed. We'll start again tomorrow. It was a good lesson learned.
What a way to end a day. Oh, geez.
That's all right. It was okay.
How do you determine overall size of the piece? I mean, you just have a feeling for what you'd like it to be?
Yeah. And it also, you have to be a little careful with it. There's detail, so you want this 18 mesh, but if it's too big and it's on 18 mesh, no one's going to want to stitch a huge canvas on 18 mesh, so then you want to do it on 13, and then you have to kind of fiddle with it so that the detail can still be rendered on the 13 mesh, but it won't be cumbersome for the stitcher. So that's kind of a judgment call, design by design. Like with stockings especially, those are always better on 13. They're the less daunting than when they're on 18. But some stitchers love them. So my mother-in-law was a librarian for most of her professional life, and she really likes the preciseness of stitching, and she loves Congress cloth.
That's interesting because you don't see many people use Congress cloth.
No, you don't. It's beautiful stitched. It's just, it's a lot. It's a lot to cover.
Yeah. Well, see, when I do, I mean, the needlepoint I do is charted stuff, and I always do that on 18. And one day I bought a bunch of, I don't know, half a yard or so of Congress cloth, and I've never sat down and used it, and I really should, because it just looks like it'd be beautiful. And when I do cross stitch samplers, I always do it on 40 count because I like that really fine and smooth detail. So.
Yeah, I have a couple of counted pieces on Congress cloth right now in my stash that I would love to return to. They offer something. That detail is really beautiful, and it's so pretty to look at. If you have the vision for it or the magnifying glass, then great.
Magnifier. That's, yeah.
Yeah.
That's, yep.
Get your readers.
Yep. You can buy them, use them.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you started out painting, but now your own designs, how, you know, this, no artist, but you sketch and sketch well, or at least in my view, sketch well. So that it's just kind of a in the genes type of thing then.
It must be. My grandmother wanted to be a cartoonist. Maybe I get it from her. But, you know, once you start, and I've heard other designers talk about this, once you start designing, you start seeing the world a different way, and you start wondering how different things would render on canvas. And, you know, the more creativity you use, the more you have, and it just kind of snowballs. You just start seeing things in a different way, and that's where the inspiration can come from. A lot of colors inspire me, architecture. You know, I've got 3 small children. I'm constantly reading to them, and there's a lot of whimsical designs that I see in children's books, like Jan Brett, and those sorts of things inspire me.
Oh, I see the Ohio birds here. I was just looking to see, because your buildings, I really like your buildings. Oh, these birds,
Thank you.
For your first, that was your first effort? One of your first ones?
One of my first ones, yeah.
Hey, well played. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's interesting designs, and some of these where we just have patterns, little trees and stuff. It's just interesting. Yeah. The buildings are great, though. Those must be fun to stitch.
You know what? I love buildings. They're wonderful. They're fun to stitch, and there are a couple of stitch guides that are being created. The Mermaid Inn has a stitch guide by Robin King. She did a beautiful job. But yeah, those lend themselves very well to decorative stitches. And I love painting architecture because it's all straight lines. You can make it all symmetrical. Mm-hmm. It's very relaxing to paint versus, you know, trying to get a circle to render beautifully on this grid of canvas, which can sometimes is touch and go. Yes.
Yeah, one of the great frustrations, I think, is we can't get a perfect circle. Yeah.
Right. You just let it go.
Yep. Yeah, just pretend.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, the stitch guides. Now, when you design these, when you design your own work, do you start to, since you also stitch, do you start to see how you would stitch it as you're doing the design?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I do. I'm not as well versed in stitches as I see stitch artists out there doing. Ginny Barney, Mary Legalay, Robin King. There's so many of them that do these beautiful guides. I would love to get into ribbon work because there's a lot of beautiful stitches with those too. But yeah, sometimes, especially with an open stitch, I love skip tent and letting the paint kind of come through and do the job for the thread. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have that sugar plum ornament. I would love to do that in that Easter grass Krynic and just cover the whole thing. And Easter grass, make it look like candy. Uh-huh. Yeah, sometimes they do kind of stitch themselves.
Yeah, well, I would think, because I mean, other painted people I've talked to haven't necessarily stitched, and so it's just producing the piece of art on canvas. But if you stitch, I imagine your mind just starts to work. Wait a minute, I could do this stitch here, and almost have a stitch guide by the time you're done with it.
Yeah, and that was another piece of advice from Anne when I started painting more and more. She said, you've really got to keep stitching because I think it makes you remember as, you know, what the stitcher is going to be experiencing. Uh-huh.
Yeah. From whence you came, yes.
That's right. Don't forget your roots.
That's right, yeah. And of course, all the threads we have now, it's you're right. The people who are really, really good at painted canvas and at bringing those to life, they also really know how to use all the threads we have to create the textures and the feels that need to be there.
It is incredible. We're so lucky. And, you know, something that's I've come to recently, I love stranded thread, which I always use silk. straight off the skein, but I've really come to love strandable thread recently. I don't know why. I just think the colors are so beautiful and the finish is so lovely, but it's really great to experiment with different fibers because you just don't know until you start stitching how it's going to render.
Right, right. Do you have people doing a lot of stitch guides for your pieces?
Not really, no. Right now, my stitch guides are primarily from the clubs that I have done. So Mary Legalet is, we're wrapping up a club right now with Wool and Willow. It's a 12 Days of Christmas. It's in blue and white, and Mary has created these really lovely stitch guides. And
well, she tends to have a little talent, yeah.
Oh yeah, a little bit, just a little. I've got a couple of clubs coming out soon that have stitch guides, and then there's a shop in Florida, 2 shops in Florida, and they're creating their own stitch guides to go with clubs that I've created. Yeah, so I feel like it's the smaller pieces, the ornaments. The only big piece that I've ever sent out for a guide to be created was with Robin King and the Mermaid Inn. Mm-hmm. And she actually came and taught a class.
Oh, using that? Oh.
Using that, yeah.
Oh, that must be a good feeling when somebody wants to teach a class, yeah.
Yeah, it was done through Wool and Willow, and it was wonderful to meet Robin. Yeah, it is. It's a really cool thing.
Other than I have to paint 30 canvases and hurry up.
Right.
A good order, but oh man, it's going to be some late nights here.
Right.
Yeah. Talk about your business now. You have your own line, you have these other 10 artists, and then I assume it's all wholesale to shops. So
it's all wholesale to shops, yeah. Yeah, and primarily to brick and mortar shops. There are a lot of shops that are run online, which is great. I think there's a lot of people live in needlepoint shop dark zones, and they just don't have one in their neighborhood or even within an hour's drive. So that's where the online sales are just so crucial for them. It's such a tactile thing, and I can't imagine just not being able to run to the shop and pick out a new thread, or if I run out of something and having to order it, that would be cumbersome. But yeah, it's the brick and mortar again, because I started at a shop. The services that they can provide are just, it's just so hard to get these things online. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the people who don't have shops, and I'm sure that they are as frustrated as anyone because of that very fact. They can't go and look and hold and feel and talk to somebody about them. They have to operate kind of in a vacuum. And fortunately, we have the internet to help with that. But still, that human to human and hand on the thread type thing is hard to beat.
Yeah, and help with stitches and with finishing and with any other thing that comes up.
Yeah. So you have this line of canvases and you do all the painting. You don't send them out?
I do send them out.
Okay.
I do. I started doing them myself, and then volume became way too much. So okay. I have a painting service, and it's one I wholly trust. I've yet to ever see something that they have created in, the likeness of my master copy that wasn't even better than what I had started with. Oh. They're just really talented painters. So everything is hand painted, and then I can handle volume. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's good that you have volume. That's a good sign right there.
Yeah. If I didn't have that, there would be a long wait.
These services interest me because, that to be able to do it to the precision and so that you're happy with the result, like for you to be able to say I completely trust them, boy, that's because it would be really easy to get sloppy with those things. Yes,
it would be, and I've been very lucky to make this contact very early on that. That I could kind of road test it and see that they did, the colors are just done so well. Shading is done so well. It is really wonderful that I can get a shipment in, and then I can fill orders, and then I can keep creating new designs.
Yeah,
very lucky to have them.
Yeah, that's got to be a factor, because if you're painting all the time, you don't have time to create. Yeah.
Right. I know of an artist who paints all of her own things, and she's on a year-long wait list.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Ouch.
Right. That would be a hard turnaround time to.
Yeah, that's hard to grow.
With.
It's hard to grow your business when you're. Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Ooh. That's great. So do you do trunk shows? You do the whole thing?
I do trunk shows, and I'm trying to get a second trunk show in circulation. Right now I have one show that goes around, and I'm booked into 2021 with that one trunk show. But I'm trying to pull enough inventory together so that I can send out 2 shows at once, so that shops are so nice to call and ask for one. And I feel awful saying it'll be 2 years. Is that okay? I was going to go to Dallas in September, but I'm having my 4th child next month.
Oh,
and
congratulations. Holy smokes.
Thank you. I wasn't, busy enough. So,
so you had a kid. Excellent.
Had a kid. We got a puppy 2 weeks ago. I don't like to sit down, apparently, but
yeah, clearly.
I ended up I'm not going to Dallas. It's going to be too much. I was really hoping to go. I can meet these people that I've been working with that I only know through phone calls or through email. But yeah, next year I'll go to Orlando perhaps, or go to Dallas next year. Yeah. But that frees up a lot of inventory, so maybe that can get a second trunk show going.
Yeah, the Dallas, that's the Debbie Woodard show, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on my radar. I want to go to that. It looks like it's a great time, if nothing else.
I've heard it's, really done well and very well attended.
Yes.
I always see videos of the line dancing.
Yeah, it's not just canvases.
No.
There seems to be a lot more going on there.
Right.
Well, Debbie's a fun person just in general, so.
Then her show would be fun.
Right. So when you say you need enough inventory for a trunk show, I mean, it sounds to me like you need to have, half dozen or more of each?
I don't even do that much. No, I've lost count. I don't know that I've counted lately, but I have about 300 designs right now. And so I'd like to have at least one of everything.
Oh.
And so my shows aren't huge. I think they're right now around 150 to 200 canvases that go out, and it's just a good sampling of my work.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of record keeping, I would think.
Yeah. I'm very close to personal friends with my Excel file. Keeping everything organized, but it's wonderful that I have that option, and it works for shops too, to have this new line. If they've never ordered from me, they can road test my designs with their stitchers and see if my work is something that speaks to them. And it's a good way to network without leaving your home.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And with 4 kids and a puppy, you need that option. Yes.
Right.
Right. Wow. I'm tired on your behalf.
Thanks.
So talk about these artists. Talk about these artists and what drew you to some of these.
So, one of the first artists I began working with is an artist out of Australia named Jackie Williams. And there were mudslides in California several years ago. A museum there, or art gallery, was doing a fundraiser, and they were commissioning art from artists from all around the world. And I won at auction Jackie Williams' portrait of this woman, and I loved her work, and I reached out to her, and I would love to put this to needlepoint canvas, and she was completely on board. So I've done a couple of designs for her. Lindsay Ward is another artist I work with. She's a children's book illustrator, actually lives 10 minutes from my house. We had a mutual friend, and her sister-in-law is a stitcher, so I didn't have to tell her about needlepoint. It wasn't completely foreign to her, but she's been very generous with her children's book illustrations and letting those come to canvas. Those are
children's book. When I look, we have 2 grandsons, and I look at children's books. I've seen in the illustrations a needlepoint design.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They lend
completely.
themselves lots of
Oh, they really
spaces.
do.
Yeah.
They do. And, you have to be so careful with copyright and, getting permission for different things. I wanted to do a canvas. I actually called the U.S. Copyright Office to ask, would this be permissible? And they said, well, you could do it, but I wouldn't. Okay. And, that was just using, like platform 9 3/4 from Harry Potter. They said, shouldn't do that unless you want to reach out to J.K. Rowling's people, which I obviously can't do. So it's wonderful that I have some of these artists in my community that I can reach out to, that they everything is approved by them. It's all under their command. Nothing goes to market without something getting their stamp of approval.
Yeah. If there's none of my if it's none of my business, say so. But what is the mechanics of working with an artist like that? Is it a one-time fee and then they approve your canvas? How does that work?
That's one approach, and that's not one that I've used just because of the capital and the value, and it's really hard to figure out what the value would be of one piece of art to license it indefinitely. So my approach is to work out a commission rate with each artist.
Okay.
And so I have a standard agreement that I send out to all of my artists, and it's nothing that a lawyer worked up. It's just putting in writing that this artwork is theirs. I'm only licensing it for needlepoint. Nothing goes to market without their approval. They get a commission of the wholesale price, and whenever it sells, they get paid.
Mm-hmm.
So that's worked really well for me. It's very clear cut. So that's sent out on a monthly or a quarterly basis. It's, anybody can back out at any time. It's easy.
Yeah. So then when you do that first canvas, then that goes to them, or a picture of it goes to them to approve?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. And sometimes, like with Jackie, she's got these faces and, trying to get the proportions right. And
yeah.
sometimes I'll send her things. She's so sweet. Maybe the nose is off. So I'll go back, I'll tweak it, and we eventually get it right. But yeah, so everything goes through an approval process. There is one artist that I work with, and they paint their own canvases, and I just manage their collection. This is
Really?
the Stitch Garden. Yeah,
Oh.
They're Betsy and Maureen are two ladies. They've been selling on Etsy, and then I met them through another artist that I work with, and they, oh my God, they have the most charming designs, and so I just manage it for them. So it's really easy for me. They paint it all.
Wow, these are, and folks, the plumstitchery.com is where you see all these.
Right.
But yeah, these are some intricate designs. They're Stitch Garden, the pillows and stand-ups.
Yeah, they have they have a Staffordshire collection of stand-ups, and they have a great sense of humor. So some of their stand-ups are called Sally Field and Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, I see that.
They have a Betty Davis collection. Their humor comes through.
Oh, good stuff.
And the other thing that I am concerned about whenever I'm meeting a new artist or want to bring their collection in, I want to make sure that there's no toe stepping and that their individual styles are able to stand apart from everybody else. So that's another thing on my radar when I'm looking for a new artist. Is this something new? One of the artists I work with is Snowden Flood. She's in London, and she's got a really cool style. It's like nothing I've seen. I've been very lucky. These artists are so generous.
That's interesting. Yeah, you have to be careful that you have distinct differences between artists, because I'm sure you could easily run into ones that are this one's similar to that one. And
yeah, and I do. There is some stylistic overlap with the artists with whom I work, but we're careful.
Yeah,
keep everybody a little bit unique.
When you select these, what do you look for? Do you look for so much a portion of the design that is solid colors so that you can develop a field of stitches? Do you try to be careful that you don't have so much detail that everybody's basket weave and tent stitching everything just to get the detail? How do you evaluate these things?
I don't think about the stitches when I'm looking at the original artwork. I do wonder if original artwork would render well on canvas.
Okay.
And that's my primary question to myself when I'm looking at these. Besides their style being unique, are they going to render well on a grid? And I'm talking with a watercolor artist right now that I would love to collaborate with. And I've done a couple of original watercolors to put them on canvas, but I think that would be so cool. I don't see that very often in our industry. But that's really tricky with color, trying to get the lightness of watercolor in on needlepoint canvas, but it would be so unique. So that's my focus. Can this work well on a grid? Okay.
And then you don't, so the detail, like too much detail, you just don't worry about that.
No.
Okay.
No. If it'll work, it'll work.
Okay. Because that's, in stitching, and again, ages since I did a painted canvas, but when I look at them and I look at what people do with them, I often wonder how you get the detail. And at some points, I assume that people just give up detail to get the look that they're after. Whether it be polka dots or edges of clouds or something, just give it up or let it show through. Do an open stitch and let it show through. But
and I mean, if it's stitch painted, then that'll set the tone, and you don't have to worry about the level of detail so long as it can be stitch painted.
Yeah. So Snowden flood. Yeah. This. And you just have, for most of these, it looks like you just have just 2 or 3 or 4?
Yeah. So I tried to feed into their collections a little bit over time. There has been great demand for several of the artists, and so their collections are larger. People clamored for Dana Gibson's work, and her colors and her themes are just very exciting and I think very bright and fun to stitch. And Dana Mankey as well. She's got a great collection of blue and white chinoiserie pieces, and so her collection has grown leaps and bounds. I've been trying to add Debbie Vincent. She's got the most beautiful stationery, and you just kind of answer to demand. And if people ask more of this artist, please, then you're happy to oblige.
Yeah. The ones with words, there seems to be a real big market for designs with words on them, sayings and so on. Do you see that?
Oh, absolutely, I do. And I think that's something that's been around for a while. I'll look at interior design feeds on Instagram, and I'll see someone's vintage pillow from their grandmother. And that's, I think, something that's been around for a while, just these quirky sayings or witticisms that you see on pillows. And it's gotten a little bit sassier with younger designers.
Yes.
And I have a couple of them myself in my own stash. There's personality, and it's witty and it's quirky, and I think it's appropriate on needlepoint.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, there's a wide range of word-oriented designs of all kinds. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not too much you can't get, I don't think.
I don't think so. Yeah, and now there are some great custom artists out there who the needlepoint novelists, and I can't think of any of off the top of my head. But yeah, if you can dream it, it can be painted.
So your own stitching, with 3.5 kids and a dog, the 5 minutes you get a day. Do you stitch painted canvas, or do you stitch a variety of things?
I stitch painted canvas mostly, and I have done some counted pieces. I kind of hoard vintage needlepoint pattern books, and I love to look through those from time to time. So I've done a handful of those. And the funny thing is, stitching my own work is kind of like reading a book you wrote, and it's not as pleasant to stitch something I've painted. But I'm doing a stocking for my nephew right now that I've painted, but I really love to stitch other people's stuff. So I have the same stash problem as every other stitcher.
like reading a book you wrote. Yeah. Okay. That's good. Yeah. Because I wonder about that. You design. I mean, the designers who stitch, and of course, a lot of them will stitch a model. But then, right. I need to ask that more often. Do you stitch other people's work just to have some variety? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just more fun. And there's another artist, and we trade designs, and we've talked about this. She doesn't like to stitch her stuff either.
Okay.
We do. Yeah, you do. You need to stitch your own work. You absolutely do. Yeah, you need models. But I have more fun stitching other designers' work. And there are so many great designers out there. And it's just amazing. I'm on Instagram a lot. And I've forged these friendships with these designers. I don't know them. I've never heard their voice before, but I consider them close friends. Right. It's a really goofy thing. I think a lot of people understand that with social media being so prolific.
Oh yeah, that's like you're the 124th guest I've had, and
wow,
I think all these people I've talked to, and I've met maybe 2,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's a really strange world we're living in. We're all so scattered, but it's great to have this community that we have.
Oh yeah, because you get to share. Everybody gets to share and learn. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also bridging a divide between designer and stitcher. And so if someone tags me on social media posts and I get to see this canvas that I've painted that they've brought to life, that's really exciting to me too. It's not just being sent out and then I never hear again.
Yeah, that's got to be it right there. Seeing your design come to life. Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, it's humbling that someone has that piece and they've taken time out of their life to stitch it. It is everything. It really makes my day.
I'm sure you see when people finish them, designs or efforts that I would have never thought of that.
Yes, absolutely. Or the stitches that they use or the way that it's finished. And, it's inspiring. I've seen my own canvas come through finished and, I have to stitch that.
What a great canvas. I ought to get one.
Right. I wonder who made that.
Yeah. Are you seeing more, younger people? I mean, here I go with the age thing. Are you seeing younger people get involved more?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Huge amount of a new generation of stitchers. Mm-hmm. And, I worked at the shop at Wool and Willow for several years. And you feel like the demographic for needlepoint would be this, but in reality, it's so much bigger than that. Men, needlepoint, young people, grandmothers, it's all over the place. I think everybody is starting to realize how meditative and relaxing it is.
Yeah.
And especially with all of the younger designers that are coming up right now, and they are coming up with such wonderful designs that are so fresh. You're not just stitching flowers or
the standard basket of fruit. Yeah.
Right. There's just so much more artistry to choose from.
Yeah.
And any style that you could possibly want. If you're preppy, if you're, Southwestern, if you're modern, if you like, Tupac, there's a canvas for you.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That's a popular one. That one.
Yes.
The Tupac one. Yes. Well, I'm glad to hear that. 'Cause I think it's exciting. I think we're in an exciting time, with all needlework. There's so many options and so many good designers. And I've said this before, and I don't think it ever comes out right, but I think compared to 20, 30 years ago, there's a higher level of sophistication with designs, and people are really approaching it differently. And I mean, there's just an awful lot of it. And of course, social media, YouTube, FlossTube, all the Facebook groups, Instagram, all are feeding that, because it allows people to connect that would never even know each other exist if it wasn't for social media. So it really is huge.
Yeah, you can curate your stash so much more efficiently now. And being on Needlepoint Nation, I mean, for better or worse, for your budget.
Yeah, that's the bad part there.
Right. They put a disclaimer in Needlepoint Nation when you join to hide your credit card, and for good reason, because they are very tempting, and I'm guilty of this. I was just pulling my stash out last night to go through it, and I had to put it away because it overwhelmed me, and I didn't want my husband to see. And
yeah.
Gosh, I'm never going to live long enough to stitch all of this. But yeah, I mean, and that's what I was saying earlier with the artists that I represent. And I know that there are other design houses that have a huge variety of artists, but everybody has their own style. Not everybody's going to like the same canvas. And it's so lovely that we have the options that we have.
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt. Yeah, I've been using the hashtag lately. Fiber Talk made me buy it. That gets you off the hook. Just blame it on me.
That's so true.
Just blame it on me. No, it's fine. Just do that. I'll take it. I'll take the heat.
Okay.
Because
hearing from Jack.
Yeah. Is that who I'll hear from? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I'll watch for Jack. All right. But it's so easy. Oh, it's so easy to pick up stuff. Oh, it's dangerous. You start poking around and see this, and it's so easy to buy it anymore. And yeah.
And if you have an emotional connection to a canvas, you know, I had a Welsh Corgi that we had to say goodbye to a few weeks ago, but any Corgi canvas I see, I have to have that. It's my dog.
Yep. Yeah.
That makes it even harder.
Well, no, and that's one area of design, whether it's cross stitch or painted canvas or whatever. People and their pets, their dog or their cat. I mean, that's just like a big thread of consistency through the whole hobby. Is people want to have that and have a favorite photo of a dog and they get it converted, and it's
right.
Yeah, a lot of that.
Yeah.
So do you have a studio? A special room?
I do. So I have a sunroom.
That's now going to be the fourth kid's bedroom?
No, we got really lucky. We moved into a new house last year that just happened to have 5 bedrooms. And we weren't expecting to have any more, but so that's good. They're not taking over my art space. I have a sunroom off the back of the den, and I have a standing desk, and I leave my work out all day. And whenever I have 5 minutes, I'll go in there and work for 5 minutes. That's been one of the hardest things to learn when I first started doing this. So this was a very scary profession to jump into. I wanted to quit every day for the first 6 months, first year, panic attacks. You get through it and you love it enough that you just keep at it. But being able to jump in and out of the creative mindset was really a learning curve for me. I used to only do something that was creative when I was in the mood or when I felt creative, and I just don't have that luxury now. And I think a lot of people can appreciate that when you're an artist running a business, it's not all,
right.
Painting time. You have to do other things too. You wear a lot of hats. But it's made me a better worker having those restrictions. You have 3 minutes right now that your child is content playing with their toy. You can run over and put a little bit of paint on a canvas. You'll do it because that's all you have.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking. We had last week. Let's see when this goes up. Yeah, it'll be last week. Pat Goodson, who is a professor at Texas A&M, and we had been talking in previous shows about standing up and stitching, and got into quite a discussion with her because she does that. She has a stand on her dining room table, and that same kind of thing. You know, the water's boiling for dinner. I can go over and put in 5 stitches, or I can thread a needle. And we had quite a talk about that and how beneficial that is. And then she followed up after the fact and said one thing she'd forgotten is that she's able to work without her head bent over all the time. And what a plus that is. But yeah, she is a big proponent of that. Yes.
That's funny. And I know of stitchers, they stitch at red lights. They stitch while they're waiting for church to begin.
Okay.
Some of them stitch during church. And yeah, if you've got a moment to do something, why not?
I'm going to try that when the sermon starts. No, I'm not going to try that.
I'm Catholic, and we have a very aerobic mass. I don't know that I could stitch during a Catholic mass.
Yeah, you Catholics have trouble sitting down. Yeah,
right.
You've got a real
Shake
problem
your neighbor's
there.
hand.
Yeah, yeah. I'm Lutheran, and we're up and down a little bit, and we do that sharing of the germs thing. I don't like that, but
No.
The shaking of the hands. But
you can smell Purell.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Throughout the church after that.
Yeah. I don't care for that. But yeah, you Catholics have got the up and down thing going too much. Yep. Couldn't.
Yeah. I'm not that hard up for stitching that I need to be doing this.
I'd pay big money to see somebody stand up for responsive reading, stitching. Yeah, I think I'd pay money to see that. Yeah.
Don't think that would go over well.
No. There'd be a pull aside afterwards. You know, maybe that's
not the time.
Yeah. But doing it before church, now that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do that. Well, you know, it all comes back to this being a meditative craft. And, you know, I've heard people joke, and I don't think it's completely a joke, that needlepoint is their therapy.
Oh, I don't think so at all. Oh, no, I don't think so at all. I think that for a lot of people, and I think needlework in general has gotten a lot of people through some difficult times. It has been there, and you know, instead of alcohol or drugs or whatever,
right.
that's been the tool. And you know, what better of a tool than that? And oh yeah, I think without a doubt, it's been beneficial for many people. And
yeah, I know there are days when I'm just spinning and I just need to sit down and stitch for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it takes the edge off. And I've heard stitchers say, you know, they can tell when they haven't needle pointed in a day. They're just, their nerves are on edge. It's like exercise.
Yeah. Now see, I don't have that as much with stitching. I enjoy doing it, and I seize every opportunity. But I ride bike a lot, and a road bike. And the days, and today's one of them, that I did not get to ride, and I know that feeling. And it really just, you know, I just want to, you know, I need to get out and do that. I need that time, that alone time, where it's just me on a bike on the road. I need that, and if I don't start a day off with that, yeah, I know that feeling. I'm not right, and today, you know, I hope it doesn't show, but today is one of those days where, you know, I just all day long I felt like, oh man, I wish I could have gone out this morning. It just wasn't an option, but and I've not had that feeling as much with needlework, but I do know that the times that I sit down in the recliner at night instead of going over to the stitching table, that there's that pull all night long. You know, all right, I'm getting up. I'm going over there. And it's been many times 10 o'clock at night. Okay, I sat in this chair long enough. I'm going over and at least knocking out 10 stitches. Yeah.
And always having a project with you. I don't know how mobile your projects are, but I always have something with me. Because if I'm sitting anywhere for 5 minutes or longer and I'm not stitching, all I can think is, oh, I could be stitching right now.
Well,
I'm wasting time.
Yep. Last week, I was in Vegas, and I'm a magazine editor, and I edit 2 magazines. And we were it was one of those rare times where we were between magazines. I could legitimately leave my laptop at home. I was going to a trade show where once the show started, I really wasn't going to have time to do work effectively. And I was in Vegas, so I flew out, and you fly out there in the time zones. So I'm in the middle of the afternoon, and I thought, I can sit down in a hotel room from 3 o'clock till I go to bed and stitch.
Wow.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's luxurious.
No kidding. It was one of those. And I packed up all my stuff, my lap stand. I'm working on a couple of old world cross stitch Santas on 40 count linen, and I had all the stuff. And I got to the hotel room. I checked in, a Diet Pepsi and a snack. Went to the room, cleaned off the desktop, sat down, got everything out. I forgot my magnifier light.
No. And you need that with 40 count linen.
Yeah. Forgot it.
And I'm guessing they didn't have them for
no
with the little tube of toothpaste.
No, there was not one on the list. No. I sat there. I must have sat there for 5 minutes. All right, how am I going to pull this off? And I tried 2 stitches, and I just simply couldn't see them. And it's like, oh, geez, this whole...
That's painful.
Yeah, all wasted. And then I didn't even have a laptop. So, because there's always work I can do, but I didn't even have a laptop to haul out now because I left that at home because I was going to stitch. It's like, oh, man, I can't believe this. So, yeah.
Now you're in Vegas, so I guess you just go enjoy the shows.
No, because see, that's a city I hate. I go there only because I have to. So that would not.
I've never been.
Yeah.
I am not a gambler. I don't think I would enjoy it. But I hear the shows are really good out there.
Yes, they are. They're expensive, but they are. Yeah.
No, that's something that's really, needlepoint and Netflix and binge watching TV, and you can always remember what you were watching when you stitched a certain piece.
Yep. Yep.
I was watching Downton Abbey when I stitched my kids' stockings, and it would be 1 a.m, and I think, oh God, I should probably go to bed right now. Do one more episode.
Yeah. You can hang in there for one more. That's right.
Right.
Yeah. They're only 40 or 45 minutes. You can do it.
Right. I can do it. I have to see what happens next.
Yeah. Oh, that Netflix, Amazon. Well, I give you a whole season of episodes to just sit there and just churn through. Yes. Yeah.
It's really conducive to needlepoint.
It's perfect.
It is.
Yep. Joanna, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Gary. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, same here. Really enjoyed it. Thanks to everybody for listening.